this is a conversation. And conversations require us to relax, to enjoy, to know each other, to build networks along the way. So, we'll not make it very, very formal, but at the same time, we also want to harvest ideas, and to improve each other, isn't it? And I want to ask Sandra to make, some comments from the British Council point of view, because the work we are doing around the Tamaduni conversations, actually a partnership between Twaweza Communications, the British Council, and other organizations across the country. We've done stuff in Mombasa with the teams in Mombasa. We are doing stuff in Nakuru with creatives in Nakuru. We'll be doing stuff in Nairobi with creatives in Nairobi. Okay? So, Sandra, please, just some comments.
My name is Sandra Chege, and I am the head of arts at the British Council. And I'm here with my colleague, Joyce Kanze. I'm really, really excited to be here today and really proud of the work that Twaweza has done so far. The objective of the Tamaduni conversations is to be able to hear the voices of creative people across Kenya to make sure that we are able to better adjust the programs and respond to the needs of the sectors that we work in. This is my first time in Nakuru as an adult. I think I used to come as a younger person, and not going to tell my age, but it's really important, and I'm really excited that we spent the day yesterday going to the museum, meeting some of your sector leaders here to better understand what Nakuru is interested in doing. Now, about the British Council, I will be brief because the point is to be here today and to have a conversation. The British Council works through partners like Professor Kimani and his organization and several others. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the sectors in Kenya and across Africa that the British Council works in can find ways to connect to their peers in the UK and across the globe in ways that matter to them the most. So the work that we do is very research-led, meaning that it is not my opinion about the thing. It is conversations like this, it is research led by experts that informs the programs that are designed. And also it is artist-led, meaning that it looks after the interests of creative people based on their needs at the time. So it keeps adjusting. Now we work through three key pillars. The first one is called Culture Connect. Now Culture Connect is about creative exchanges. So thinking about what are you interested in doing as a creative person in Nakuru, and how do you make a connection to a creative person in the UK to collaborate and create new work that you share with new audiences. We have open calls that we run every year that are competitive but are really dynamic and contribute really to understanding the cultural and creative needs of the sectors in which we work. The second one is around the creative economy, which is around understanding the skills required to run a creative business. So if you go online today, you will see that if you just type in Creative Economy Program or So Creative Learning, British Council, you will have access to 4 really dynamic online courses for free that are built for Africa, that are talking about what are the creative sectors on the continent interested in, what are the skills that young people need to be able to run those businesses, and how do they think about creative enterprise, social enterprise, and the good of the communities that they work in. So I would really, really encourage you to look at those courses as a first place if you're really trying to understand what your business could look like. And then last but not least, we run a really dynamic program around what we call culture response to global challenges. We've been hearing a lot about the effect of climate change in Nakuru, the levels in the lakes, and the impact on community and animal conflict, even just the change in the weather and how that's affecting your built environment, the architecture, and also the desires to connect with your culture. So what Culture Response does is it makes it possible for creatives to learn skills for the heritage sector. There's another partner that we work with, African Digital Heritage, that have developed a free toolkit for heritage practitioners. So I would also really recommend, I think I'm going to put a a flip chart with links and things that you can just go to and put it in the back for you to go and visit at your own leisure. But I really recommend that toolkit because it's looking at how do you work in your community as a heritage practitioner and make the work make sense. And then we have the work that we're doing here with Twaweza on conversations. Because if we don't get into dialogue, we really don't have a sense of what are the needs, how do we support each other, what is the world that we're trying to build, and how do we co-create that new vision. So that's a little bit about the work. I'm very interested in hearing from you over the course of the day. We're here all day with Kanze and colleagues, so please don't hesitate to reach out and we can talk a little bit more about the work that you do and how you're looking to connect with the council. So thank you for your time and looking forward to a fruitful session.
We can no longer continue saying we don't know where the content is to learn. It's available online. It's being produced every day. It's available on YouTube. It's available in the various platforms that we have online. So just go in and learn. Never say I don't know, because the information is there. Sasa jamani. So we are going to be building this thing together. We are going to be learning together. So this is the way I'm hoping we can do this. We are focused on Nakuru as a creative city. Okay? We want to stay there. We want to stay on Nakuru as a creative city. Now, there are normally different visions of that creativity. There is the vision of the policymakers, and there is the vision of the creative sector. Also, we try to work in the space that bridges the gap between policy and decision makers and the beneficiaries of the various policies. So we try to bridge that gap. And that is done through increasing understanding amongst policymakers on the needs of the sector. Because sometimes, they are very well-intentioned people in many cases, but sometimes they might not know what you really want. So we create those platforms. Sometimes the sector is very suspicious of policymakers. Hawa jamaa hawajui hawa. They don't know. You see. But you see, if they don't know, then you have a responsibility of helping them understand. I was talking with Isikuli this morning. He raised a question, and I'm like, yeah, I hear you completely. And I think that we are trying to solve that problem in a different platform. You see. And it is true, sometimes we suspect that policymakers do not know. And sometimes they don't know. Okay? But I also believe that they are willing to learn. You see. So this first session, we want to focus on the vision, our various visions. I would like you to imagine or to share with us your vision of Nakuru. If there is a particular street you'd like worked on, a particular building you'd like worked on, a particular thing you'd like started to enhance that vision, how do you imagine Nakuru to look like, say, 10 years from now, as a creative city? Okay? Write it down. Write it down, and we'll pin it in that flip chart that says Vision of Nakuru City. Don't pin it on any other. We have a series of other things that we are going to be doing. So you pin it on the flip chart that says Vision of Nakuru City. We will back to those ideas later. But they do provide a point of entry in terms of the conversation we are starting with, based on vision of Nakuru. Before I call my colleagues to share with me, I just want to say a couple of things. One, globally now has the place of creativity and the imagination as an engine of socio-economic transformation. This is now global. Many of us knew that a long time ago, but it's only now that the world is recognizing this. And it's recognized because the creative sector by itself increases cohesion and happiness of people. And we now know that when people are happier, they actually produce more. Receive, they actually produce more. When people trust each other, they actually do more. Because they actually, and they are able to do more because they trust each other. Okay? So this is critical. This is critical. But we also know that the creative sector actually does employ people. It's a profession like any other, and that the creative sector is a major job creator. And this is becoming even more evident because of technological advances. So many of our people are working online. And finally, the other thing that we are learning and which we now believe in is that creativity spurs innovation. You cannot innovate. If you look at artificial intelligence, it's actually being driven by creativity, by the creative sector. That the creative sector is the one that drives technological innovation and value addition across the board. So the world is recognizing this. The government has now put in place what they're calling digital economy as a critical opportunity for Kenya, the digital economy. But we are also saying that creativity is not just digital, it's also offline. There's a lot of work that happens offline and that needs to be taken care of. So moving away from digital economy to digital and creative economy. So combining the two, and so on. So for this session, I want us to have a conversation with policymakers as well as people in the creative sector. And I want to call to the front Stephen Chege, who is administrator at the Nakuru City Board, who is going to be speaking with me on the vision of Nakuru City as a creative city. So, karibu sana Bwana Chege. He is representing Mr. Gitau, the Nakuru City manager, who has had to go to Nairobi to attend the UN Habitat event. I also want to call Eric Wanyama, Players Theatre. Eric, again, really nice to have you, Eric. You'll be sharing with us some reflection. Faith is a legal officer at the Kenya Cultural Center in Nairobi. And I think it's important that we have this conversation. I want to start with Stephen. From where you sit at the Nakuru City Board, what do you see in terms of creativity in Nakuru? Where are we? What is the vision of the board going forward? If you can make some remarks, and then I'll come back to you after you have made your initial remarks. Because in November 2021, we were declared a UNESCO Creative City, which is really, and congratulations Nakuru, It doesn't happen all the time, It doesn't happen all the time. So we got that. Where are we?
After we got designated as a UNESCO Creative City, the first thing we did was to come up with a sector working group for creative cities. And so far we've been able to do a roadmap that will now affect us as a creative city. Currently we have a committee that has been working, and this is drawn from the city board and members of creative space in Nakuru. What I would be excited to maybe talk about is we've been able to budget some funds in our CADP. The CADP is a County Integrated Development Plan whereby it's going to guide our development for the next 5 years. And creative, and especially the category that we got, we've been sure to capture a few projects that are going to enhance Nakuru as a creative city. It's also important to mention here that we are developing a Vision 2050. And the vision has 4 pillars, but of importance today is the pillar on social cultural development that now shows that the county and the city board in specific is very dedicated on developing the cultural space in Nakuru.
You are aware that the designation is around crafts and folk art. If you could just go a little deeper in terms of where is that? Where are the crafts actually? Where is the folk art in Nakuru that you are going to be amplifying and strengthening and so on?
I was having a conversation with Babushe today, and in my perspective, and not that of City Board, my perspective of folk arts was majorly on music. But it's opened my mind today that folk is the evolution of what we've come through, and music is just one component. And going deeper into what we've done, and I will speak of an activity that we've done recently, whereby we are incorporating creativity and creative arts in urban planning. For instance, we had a campaign the other day, a road safety campaign. We partnered with UN Habitat, and we are using street art to raise awareness on road safety. And that is an aspect of urban planning that we are going to pick up and do in future in all our streets. So that is one of the examples of projects that we are doing in line with our vision, and it's also important to mention here that our vision for Nakuru City is to enhance quality of life of our residents as we also build their economic development. The other project I would maybe talk about at the moment was the development of Nyayo Garden, because we wanted to create space where communities can come and interact, and we are aware we have different cultural backgrounds. The other project would be the NMT that we've done. We've done phase 1 of Kenyatta Avenue, and in our design, and what we are going to continue in phase 2 and phase 3.
Can you elaborate MIT?
NMT is non-motorized transport system. We want to discourage use of vehicles, and especially in town. In the design, we are going to come up with a lot of street furniture, so that we are able to provide spaces for Nakuru residents to just feel free and interact in the city.
Non-motorized capability, so more walking, more healthier communities. That means that you have to create walkways and so on. But as a creative city, obviously you want that to be artsy, isn't it? You want the look and feel really creative, so that you populate the whole place with creativity. I would actually be quite interested also in knowing about Vision 2050, but maybe we can discuss that a little more, as well as the CIDP. Obviously, again, very, very critical, because without the creative sector being in those documents, you cannot develop programs. So you need to be in those documents so that you can actually develop programs. Faith, I want to come to you on two fronts. And thanks a lot, really, for coming to share with us from Nairobi. The first front is obviously the Kenya Cultural Center. If, you know, we know that the Kenya Cultural Center has been there, I think, since 1952. You know, so since 1952, we have had the Kenya Cultural Center. It's been the space where the creative talent has been expressed and so on. And I'm interested in knowing, about the center itself and what you do at the center, and what Nakuru can learn as a creative city from the center, and then I'll follow up with something else.
Thank you, Prof. First of all, I want to say that I am really grateful to be involved in this conversation. Representative of the Kenya Cultural Center. To start off with, Kenya Cultural Center is the oldest cultural institution in our country, having been established the idea was birthed in 1949 during the colonial time, where there was a need for a focal point for cultural reference. At the time, it started with the colonialists at the time, and then we had a point when Kenyans came in and they were like, we also need a point where we can have a focal point that represents our cultures as a country and the different cultures we have in the country. So the institution was established. The idea was to have different spaces that provide for enjoyment and exhibition of cultures, be it the cultures from the western, be it cultures from the eastern part of our country or the coastal part of the country. And then they established the National Theatre, which was the first building in a course of different buildings that were supposed to be put up. So currently at the Cultural Center, we have different spaces, being the National Theatre as one. We also have an exhibition space that is a gallery. We have dance studios. We have an incubation space that is the Ukumbi Mdogo, a theatre for growing artists who are not able to put up shows at the National Theatre, and that caters for smaller audiences. Our mandate, as per the regulation we have, which is a 1952 Act, is to provide a space for enjoyment, a space for performance of art, music, drama, exhibition of art, and also a space for holding conversations on matters historical, literary, and scientific discourses. So mainly the space that is Kenya Cultural Center, as is right now, is a space for performance. But the vision was to have a focal point for cultural reference. And I think that is the vision that should be essentially for a cultural space. So for example, if Nakuru has a cultural center, which should be, I think, in every county, what the Nakuru County could borrow from Kenya Cultural Center is the idea of having a space for enjoyment, first of all, for all citizens within the county, and also others from outside the county that would want to enjoy the space. Secondly, a space for performances, for incubation, for practice for the artists and the creatives in the space, not just limited to performance of theater, but also other genres of art. And then also a space where people can have conversations, because if we're talking about culture, there has to be conversations. And in addition to conversation, educational spaces. So in terms of the Kenya Cultural Center, and borrowing that to different counties, it would be a space for enjoyment, a space for performance, a space for incubation, and a space for discourse.
I'm aware there is a lot of work in reviewing the Act because I have been involved in looking at it. to make sure that the vision of 1952 is shifted to the vision that is driven by our 2010 Constitution. So we are actually, and I know that it's that work is ongoing, and I think that what Nakuru could also borrow is the new vision of the the Kenya Cultural Center, and the ideas that we are putting in, so that they are not driven by the earlier vision, but by the current vision, the ongoing reimagining of the national theater. Before I bring in Eric, I wanted to follow up an idea with you, which is the idea of incubation. And I'll if there's a place that I maximally utilize, it's the Kenya Cultural Center. Ukumbi Mdogo is a place I have used consistently. In fact, I might even be there on the 7th of next month. So it's a space that I use all the time. It's a fantastic space. Then that space is where we hang out and so on. But I wanted to follow up the issue of incubation, because I think we have not invested enough in growing talent. And so if you could just make a comment about what you're doing with Ignite.
Nurturing the growing talent is critical to actually what comes out or what is put out by the creative sector at the end of the day. And if we are able to give our creatives a space to interact, to network, to be mentored, to fine-tune their skills, then at the end of the day, our creative sector will shine. So as Kenya Culture Center, we have that has been funded by Ignite Culture, which currently is focusing on poetry theater development. Poetry theater is a fusion of poetic work and theatrical performances, in which our vision is to train artists, to equip them with skills that can be, it's not just, when we have poetry by itself as a standalone, through research we were doing, artists expressed concern that they are not able to perform for long. Maybe they can do short pieces that are about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but they're not able to put up full-length shows that they can charge. And so that gave us, that showed us the loophole where we don't have poets be actual living from their art. And so the poetry development project, first, it is in phases, where we have the first one being development of a curriculum, whereby we're going to different counties. Nakuru was one of the counties that we considered. Actually, it was the first satellite, where we meet with poets and artists that are interested in poetry theater. They give us what are their needs, what are the gaps that they feel they need in order to put up full-length shows. And then out of these gaps from the artists themselves, then we are developing a curriculum that can be used all over the country. So Nakuru would be able to adopt the curriculum to train their artists. After the development of the curriculum, then we're going to take 10 artists from the different counties, train them, equip them with skills, not just on poetry and writing. We're going to train them on branding, event organization, the whole series needed in putting up a show, branding and marketing and how to sell their shows. And then after that, they will be putting up shows at the National Theatre. Please be on the lookout for that. And then now they'll be expected to come back to their counties, put up shows, and then we are hoping for sustainability, that they will pass these skills to other artists, to other poets, and then the curriculum can be adopted by counties and then taught to artists in institutions, and then they will be certified.
So you can already see those opportunities. Of course, Ignite Culture is, funded by the British Council. So there's opportunity there. There is the curriculum that's being developed, again, critical. And you also heard about the Africa Digital Heritage Skills Development Curriculum, which, again, is available online, which you can actually also utilize. Eric, I want to come to you because I want us to have a discussion about poetry after lunch and the project that you're doing. But before you tell me about the poetry after lunch, if you could just give me a sense of the Nakuru Players Theatre. I always think, there is value in history. You see, history situates us, it gives us a grounding on which to stand. So just give me a little bit of that history, and then tell me about poetry after lunch, and then I'll do a follow-up question for you.
My name is Eric. I'm the secretary of Nakuru Players Theatre. I am the current secretary. And what has been happening, Nakuru Players Theatre has been existent for over 70 years in Nakuru. When it was formed during of the European settlers, was formed by the European settlers and has been there. And every single year, a number of young people have come through Nakuru Players Theatre, and they have been impacted in different ways. A lot of these young people have moved on to other businesses in Nakuru, and some of these artists are actually the people who are movers and shakers of the art industry in Nakuru currently. From DJs and MCs, they have all been through Nakuru Players Theatre. I think by the mere fact Nakuru Players Theatre is the only theatre in Nakuru, a lot of young people find this space as the one place that is welcoming to them and a safe space for them. And it's a space where they can actually express themselves and actually find themselves. You know, there's that period after high school when you want to know which direction do you want to go to. So Nakuru Players Theatre has been that space. So I think when it was formed as a society, and it was managed by the European, where we have a constitution, and this constitution allows us to have elections. Initially, it used to be 1 year. After 1 year, and then right now we do elections after every 3 years, where we have a new management that comes in to manage the space. During the period, I think one thing as a club, we are having a number of developments that are going through the space, and every single day we are developing from actually just being a club into an institution, and also being an institution that can actually train artists and create programs that are actually very impactful to the young people, so that they understand not only where they come from and can actually make decisions about where they want to go to. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, so one of the programs, we are developing programs, a number of programs that we have under our belt. We do this through shows. Most of them, they are programs where we train young people, and we always make sure that at the end of every program, they always land on stage. We have various programs, and Poetry After Lunch is one of the programs that we have. Poetry After Lunch is a partnership that we have with the Kenya National Theatre, and it is our point where we train and empower poets to understand themselves in the poetry field. So like for Poetry After Lunch, what it involves is basically identifying artists. We audition artists, we give them a community where they can actually express their ideas, and they can also find a way to express themselves through things that happen in the community. Like one of the things, so every month we stage Poetry After Lunch, and one of the things, we always ensure that there's a theme. And this theme always has something to do with the social or the economic happenings in the society. So we bring these artists, after we select the theme, we sit down with them, and then we go through and discuss this theme so that they can actually understand everything that this theme involves. And also, after that, they go down into writing and develop their pieces and develop their expressions of what they feel is their own perspective, where they are coming from and how they are affected with this. And then at the end of the month, we have a showing, which is usually every third Sunday of the month. And also, we make sure that the artists are the ones who go out and get involved in trying and mobilize people to actually come and see the show. During that period, we get them to find out how to actually sell a production. Yeah, because we give them tickets and they go around and they get into interesting conversation and just ensure that they can actually build an audience and have the capability to build an audience. Because when we get to the point where a single artist wants to put up his own show, he actually understands what it takes, and he's able to actually marshal a bigger crowd just as a person. So now that we have the partnership and the support of the Ignite culture, we believe that it is an opportunity to also structure this program, to structure how these artists understand what they are doing, and also make it more impactful and meaningful to their careers as they continue to grow. Yes.
The creative sector is integrated in CIDP. Of course, the CIDP is kind of a plan. It's a plan of where we want to go. It's a vision type of. Have you developed any specific programs drawing from the CIDP for the city, especially with regard to the cultural and creative industries? Any specific things that you are doing or planning on doing?
What we've allocated every year is events that we want to hold as Nakuru City Board, and this is in line with us being a creative city. Annually, as most of you are aware, we are doing a marathon, a city marathon. We also have designated the month of October as a creative month. And it will be culminating into the World Arts Day at the last day. We also have an annual event that we're calling a cultural festival, Nakuru Cultural Festival. Our inaugural festival was early this year. We were doing it in conjunction with Egerton University. But now we feel that we want to now move away from hosting it with just one institution in Nakuru, so that we are able to open it to all the institutions in Nakuru, because our target is young people and then teaching them the cultural background that Nakuru has. It's going to be an annual event that is now catered for in our CIDP. We don't have to rely on sponsors, and it's going to be undertaken every September, October, together with what we are calling Urban October. We're having themed festivals that are going to be centered around culture, creativity, and urban planning.
I think that is, one of the way you develop these things is predictability. That Nakuru needs to be predictable. That every October, this is where the country goes. Every November, this is where the world goes. The world goes to Nakuru every November in a predictable manner, and we are able to diarize it because we know this is the week. And the offerings are presented early on because people plan their calendars early. So, which then takes me to this question about, in terms of audience development, for developing the audiences for the festivals, making sure that we have diverse, both local, global, national, regional, and so forth. Is that already in place?
The first thing that we're doing is sensitizing people and different partners. And in terms of sensitizing people, our manager has been able to hold a series of meetings with people in the creative space in Nakuru. Babushe is one of our frequent people because he follows up a lot on this creative space. We also, in line with that, we are also renovating the old town hall, because that is where we want to be holding most of our meetings. In the works, we are developing a website now independent of the county government of Nakuru, because in as much as we work as an agent partnership with the county. We are mandated to at least do things a bit different from how county does its thing. So in the works, we are coming up with a website that we will now start marketing these events around. The marathon has picked up, because this year we're going to have our third marathon. So at least now that one is well marketed, but we are also doing a lot more in terms of marketing that event. Yes.
I have always thought that the sports and the focus on sports sometimes eats into creativity, so that our visibility and our work becomes swallowed easily by sports and so on. And I think it's very important, as you plan this, to imagine a situation where, for the first time, the marathon does not swallow, the activities of the creative sector, and that it is embedded, the marathon is embedded properly within the creative sector. And to imagine the creative sector, not just in terms of music, but also in terms of its diversity, visual arts, film, photography, everything that the sector actually represents, digital arts, the whole spectrum of creativity, and that we are more holistic, but always to be very careful that sports does not swallow us completely, because it is attractive by its very nature, and that it seems to be supportive. It should always be supportive of the arts. But that's something that you could think about, and also just bring in the creative sector much more deliberately going forward. Which brings me to you, Eric. How do you see theater, playing out in November? What is your vision? What beyond, of course, the Ignite? So moving a little bit about Ignite, or even amplifying Ignite. How do you see yourselves plugged into the November celebrations, and what would you like to see in terms of a vision?
So Nakuru Players Theatre, it's amazing. Nakuru Players Theatre actually sits on the Kipchoge Keino Avenue, and if you know the history behind Kipchoge Keino is marathon, So I think there's really a lot that we can partner with, because we can bring the arts and have carnivals on that road. It's something that is possible if we actually get into such conversation. We have dancers who are really willing, and we try and encourage them to find a way to just input themselves in these conversations, because we find that they limit themselves.
I see a lot of lost opportunity, really. Even in Nairobi, when we organize the marathon and so on, I see the marathon, but I don't see the creative. So I again, just off the top of your head, see this opportunity?
And I think that is one of the things that informs why, for the longest time, the ministry that deals with sports has been put together with culture or arts. Even as we speak now, we have sports and youth and the arts, and the intersection is the fact that most of the creatives, most of our sports persons are youth. And so I think it is a conversation that needs to be had and are pushing and lobbying by creatives, whereby they speak out so that when we are having sports events, the creatives are not left out. We have reserves for the creatives to show their work, reserves for them to be supported as much as sports in the country is supported. And as Eric was saying, we have instances for collaborations, like along the avenue where he was talking about having carnivals where they are merged together with sporting activities. And therefore, if we can have conversations with both county governments and the national government, whereby when we are having sports events, then creatives are also an intricate and a big part of it, not just by the way as an opening and a closing, but also we have programs that are there for the creatives to show their works.
I'm going to ask very specific people to respond in terms of vision of Nakuru. What is your vision, Laureen, of Nakuru as a creative city?
My vision for Nakuru as a creative city, for starters, will be a holistic city that involves all. I have heard your concerns about how sports sort of overshadows creatives, and I agree with you. So how can we work together as we have the sporting events? How can we incorporate the creatives into it? And then how can we collaborate and work together? You know, how can we sit down and see what works for our city? We should not focus on what does not work. How can we make what works be better for all of us so that we all benefit? Isikwe kwamba kuna wale ambao wana feel wamekanyagiwa chini. Because where I sit, I am not a creative. I come from the civil society. So how can the civil society step up and be part of the creatives?
My vision for Nakuru as a city, I'm looking forward for a city that has a policy framework that embeds all the creatives inside, and also looking at budgetary allocation, where we have been talking about sports taking up the other agenda of the creatives. How do we allocate more to these creatives?
Good morning. My name is Simor Music. A quick question to City Board. What is the plan to partner with the institution or spaces that are actually empowering more of creative spaces?
Yeah, so it's a question about partnerships. I want Florence. Florence, what is your vision of a creative city called Nakuru?
My vision for Nakuru City is a melting pot for Kenya's culture, diversity regardless to the age, gender regardless to sex orientation, a city where people feel that there's inclusivity, where there's no discrimination.
It's inclusive, it is energized, lots and lots of energy, and the place where we come to learn and experience and be entertained.
I think my vision is informed by what I'm used to. If we can go back to our late 1990s, I think, Babshe, that's when I first met you during the Anyona Memorial. Anyona was a professor of literature in Egerton, where I went to school. And I think if we can go back there, that's my vision, where there is robust cultural activity that is promoted first and foremost by duty bearers. And I'm happy we have the city board talked a bit on the practical steps the government is taking to take us there. But I believe there's more that needs to be done. At the space of the university, I think that partnership is a bit ad hoc. I would want a partnership that is anchored on a clear vision. The conceptual clarity that you need has not been expressed or articulated by yourself. Look at the way you have framed the department. We look at these creatives, you are just included. It's about inclusion. The value, the intrinsic value that you had is not being appreciated by government. You see, you are an appendage. And I think this is the injustice we've been committing against young people, but more especially the talented young people. Art for art's sake. You know, you are called to functions to provide entertainment. And at a very abusive fee, I would say. So my vision is first and foremost, the duty bearer, the government, you must be more creative in terms of how you perceive the contribution being made by our creative young people.
So the duty bearers need to be creative in the ways in which they engage the creative sector, to be very deliberate, very systematic, and not as a footnote of the activities. So I think that is the point. But how are you handling the partnerships?
In terms of partnership, first I would want to state that the board is, this is our second year. We're going to have our anniversary in December. So we are still a baby that is trying to start working. But what we are doing at the moment is we want to institutionalize citizen fora. And the citizen fora, we are going to have all these associations represented. And according to UACA, Urban Areas and Cities Act, which mandates us now to engage citizens, we take cognizance that most of these people, residents, be it a creative, be it people living with disability, they all have that association. So what we are going after institutionalizing is giving certificates so that as we are dealing with, say, people who are coming from the creative space, at least we know we are dealing with the right people because they have that certificate issued by our office. The other thing is on partnership is now forums like this one, and I'm very excited to be here today because nowadays we just don't want to plan for the people. We want to plan with the people. And luckily we have our planner here who's going to be in the afternoon session. And one of the things that we are very keen as the administration of Nakuru City Board is we don't just want people doing plans in the offices, in their laptops. We want these plans to be generated right from the people that we are serving. So that is how we intend on enhancing our partnership with every stakeholder in Nakuru.
I really like this, that the duty bearers should not plan, independently. They should plan with the people, with the beneficiaries, with the rights holders, the people who actually pay taxes and so on. So that together we deliver something that serves all of us.